Hi, this is Ken Broadway from the University of Florida, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about basic timpani technique. So there are so many things to cover in this short session, so I'm not going to probably be as comprehensive as I'd like, but I just want to talk about basic sound production, basic grip and stroke, and then a little bit about muting and rolls. So first of all, I like to think about timpani almost like a trampoline effect. Imagine you're jumping on a trampoline. The higher you push with your legs down, the faster you move, if you will, the velocity changes, and then you start getting higher and higher. With timpani, it's very similar. If we think about this mallet coming off the head, now we often call this the upstroke. I don't know if that name is confusing to you. It can be to me. The idea is not that we're trying to pull sound, because you really can't physically pull sound, but the idea is to let this mallet come up freely from the head. I'm striking the drum about a third of the way from the edge of the bowl to the center. I'm starting from a certain height and trying to finish that same height. I'm not trying to pull the sound out with a sharp, quick motion. That'd be very tense. But the idea is just to let that mallet rebound freely. A great way to practice this is you think about coming from here, almost flicking the mallet downward. If I just let the mallet come back, it'll just come back naturally. If I let it, I'm not keeping it down. So a common problem with young percussionists, maybe who start with snare drum, is that they go down into the head and they don't let that mallet rebound freely. This is really going to affect us when we're trying to play really loud. I won't do this today because I know I would max out my mic. And also when we're moving from side to side. If I'm going down, down, it's hard to move side to side. So you notice my hands are in what's considered a French grip position. We certainly have French grip, German grip, and then some people call it the American grip. I'm not going to get too much into the hand shape right now. I do want to mention to you that the most important thing is the sound we produce. So if I'm playing German grip or French grip and achieving a great sound, to me, that's more important than which direction our hands are facing. There are great timpanists in the world who play French grip, and there are great timpanists in the world who play German grip. And again, I sometimes use the joke that in Germany they call this the grip, from what I understand. We put geographic designations onto this. Let's worry more about the sound we're producing more than the hand position we have. My general purpose beating spot for my drum, again, is a third of the way from the edge of the bowl to the center of the head. I use my general purpose mallet head placement about 4 to 5 inches apart. So a good way of looking at it for me is I can see these tension rods, and I stay just inside those tension rods. Especially for my rolls, I'm going to find this gives me a nice rich sound because it gets the whole head vibrating. There are times I do put my mouths very close together for soft articulate passages, but for the most part, again, just inside those tension rods is a great place to start. So simple exercises, legatos. Relaxed. I'm not using a lot of arm, but my arm's helping. I'm not using all fingers, which is also sometimes a little bit of a misunderstanding with the French grip. Not every stroke is finger. We use the fingers a lot when we're playing French grip for sure. Any of you drum set players out there, if you play your ride cymbal with your thumb on top of the stick, this is a great transfer to playing timpani. It's very similar in the way we play ride cymbal on drum set, for many of us, to the way we play French grip on timpani. A good thing to do for me is I do a lot of work in the air. I try to make sure I can get the drum in the way of good strokes. Makes sense? So it's very relaxed, a lot of wrist, fingers helping, arms maybe moving a little bit, and then trying to get the drum in the way of that. So don't take a shortcut here. You want to make sure there. The next thing we need to think about is the way the sound sustains. As I play these drums, they will ring for a long time. So I've got to mute the drums for a variety of reasons. One of them would be if I had a quarter note and a quarter rest, need to make sure I stop that sound. Quarter note, quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest. So a simple exercise to work on both hands is 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. You see that I'm putting my 3 fingers down on the drum head at the same approximate place that I'm striking the drum. If I put it too close to the center, I won't get the sound. If I put it too close to the edge, I won't get all the sound out of the way. The other thing is, you notice I'm not swiping at the drum. Depending on the drum you use, there may be a texture on the head. These Renaissance heads, it will almost seem like a brush on a battered head on a drum set. So I can't do this. So you just come straight down, maybe a slight angle towards the drum, this direction, but not in a circle. The goal is to not slap at the head either. But you want to get the hand down quickly and quietly. This takes some work, especially with our non-dominant hand. So again, typical exercise, quarter note, quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest. Try not to take your thumb off the stick for your muting. It's tempting because you get more hand surface area on the drum, but if you try to come back to playing quickly, you can't get the thumb back into the fulcrum position. So the quicker you get with this, eventually you need to keep just 3 fingers for your muting and keep the thumb and the index finger on the stick. The next thing we need to do here is think about muting, and again, that was for duration. Now we're going to mute for articulation. If I play a passage like this, you hear both drums ringing. So I need to make sure I only hear one if this drum is supposed to be a half note or a whole note, and these are supposed to be 16th notes. So that's why we do this. Now let's talk about the practice routine for it. This can be a little bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach because you feel like you're doing 2 different things. You'll strike the drum with the right hand, and then while you strike the drum below you with the left hand, you'll muffle with the right hand. We have to call this simultaneous muffling. First, you want to go very slowly. What you don't want to have happen is something like this. 2 things are going wrong there. Number 1, my technique has suffered a great deal. And then number 2, I am not really getting a quiet muffling sound. So it does take some time. Take some patience, and then eventually very important skill to play for timpani. So muffling for duration, quarter note, quarter rest. Muffling for articulation to clear the sound. And then finally a very brief answer to a question, when should I mute or muffle? And that depends on the passage. If it's very loud and very slow, if I'm playing something, and again, I'm going to play under fortissimo for today. I'm certainly going to mute a lot. But if I'm playing really soft and really fast, you're going to find that you actually don't solve as many problems as you think, because number 1, you'll start hearing excess noise, and number 2, because it's so soft, you're going to find that the sound doesn't bleed together as much. So again, there's a scale. If it's really loud and it's really slow, you're probably going to mute a lot. If it's really fast and it's really soft, you're probably not going to mute very much at all. And then everything else is kind of a shade of gray where you have to figure it out on each passage. This is why it's so important for a timpanist to have somebody listening out in their concert hall, because we don't know for sure what we sound like to the audience, which is a good distance away and often has many players between us and the audience, the brass, the winds. So we have to, I always use the analogy, throwing my ear out into the audience, meaning that I need to either record myself with a good quality system out in the audience, or I need to have somebody I trust go out there and listen to me to make sure that my mallet choice is good with the right articulation, that my muting is appropriate, and that my volume, my balance is correct. The timpanist in an orchestra especially is a soloist almost all the time, and you want to make sure that these sounds really blend when they should or cut through when they should. And finally, let's talk about roles. If you're going to play French grip, it stands to reason that you need to make sure your hands match really well. Many times, those of us who are right-handed, especially if we started on drum set, can do this really fast. Then we go to play our left hand, and it doesn't do the same thing because we haven't developed that fine motor control. So we want to make sure that we develop this skill by just doing one-handed exercises. Slices, no angles. And then a great way to practice this is just to start this exercise and then alternate. The most important thing is roll evenness. I would much rather have a student play a slower roll at first and get a very even sound than play a fast roll and get an uneven sound. And obviously we're using single stroke rolls here, no buzz rolls, nothing like that on timpani, single stroke. And we're trying to get those mallets, again, just around those tension rods in placement. So our basic roll, make sure we can do that for a long time to be a strong timpanist. We have a couple of other types of rolls. We have the forte piano roll. This is where we strike the drum and then we try to sneak in piano after the drum has vibrated a little while. Up close you may hear two sounds, but to the audience they're going to hear that big attack and then hear you sneak in. So at first it's a little bit daunting because you hear two sounds. Now make sure you don't accent the second sound. You want to sneak in as much as you can. And many times we will crescendo this roll. Sometimes we'll just stay soft. The other type of rolls we have are accented rolls, sometimes sforzando rolls. We sometimes hit a single accent and play a loud roll. But sometimes when we want a broader attack, maybe we're matching a low brass or a low string attack, we almost use a double accent in the roll. And there are occasions in orchestras where I use a triple accent. I'm actually, before I play the roll, 3 accented notes, and then playing the roll after that. So again, to review, our basic stroke type, that so-called upstroke or trampoline effect. We want to make sure we can mute well. Again, there's my muting for duration and then muting for articulation. Or simultaneous muting. And finally, our rolls, trying to get an even sound. Forte piano rolls and sforzando or accented rolls. Certainly there's there's a lot more that goes into timpani playing than that. We didn't even touch on tuning. We need to have a great ear to do this. We need to be able to sing well. We certainly need to be able to move fluidly from drum to drum. If we're going to sit, we need to sit the appropriate height where we get good technique, but we also need to make sure we can get to the pedals if we're tuning. And one last thing, moving drum to drum, we sometimes have to play passages. We can do a couple of different things there. We could cross stick. We could do doubles. Or my favorite, whenever possible, is I just alternate and shift. Anytime I can do that, I will, to get the most even sound. But I need to be able to play good doubles. Let's face it, if I'm playing this passage on these two drums, the 29 and the 26, that's a piece of cake. If I'm playing that passage on the 32 and the 23, that's not going to work so well. So there are plenty of times where I actually do have to play good doubles. So don't neglect that skill that you might be using, say, on rudimental snare drum. We do need to apply that to timpani. We tend to not play paradiddles unless we have to. So I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite statements I tell my students, that we want to alternate when we can and double when we have to. And then we need to make sure we know when it's appropriate to do each. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, kbroadway@arts.ufl.edu. Thank you for watching.